The topic of re-enchantment is becoming an increasingly common theme in Christian circles. And this isn't surprising because, as a whole, the culture is going in the same direction. We're seeing increasingly people becoming more involved with occult and pagan ideas. And in Christianity as well, people are growing dissatisfied with what they see as a rather flat view of the universe, influenced more by secularism than by scripture. Now, a lot of this is a response to what sociologists have been calling disenchantment. Now, usually when we talk about being disenchanted with something, it means that an idea, a person, something that has once captivated us, caught our imagination, attracted us, that it somehow disappointed us and it's lost its allure. Now, when we talk about the disenchantment of the world, that's kind of what we're talking about, but it really means something much bigger than that, and it has much, much bigger consequences. To understand why, let's take a look at the word enchantment. And we're going to do this through a word ramble. I'm going to take you from the word enchantment, and I'll run you through all of the different implications from it in all different kinds of directions.
Okay, so let's take a look at the word enchantment. Now, enchantment is more or less an abstract noun coming from the word enchant. And to enchant something is to make it magical. Now, literally, the word enchant, the root word, means to sing into something. Singing was seen as a way of imbuing something with magic. Now, when we talk about singing, this, of course, can bring us immediately into the idea of music. And in the Middle Ages, music was really divided into three categories. You have your musica instrumentalis, the music of the instruments. This is the kind of music that you listen to. It's vocal music, it's instrumental music, it's all of those sorts of things. And this was considered really the lowest form of music. You also have then the musica humana, the music of the human body, soul, and spirit. These are the rhythms of your life, your respiration, your heartbeat, your waking and sleeping cycles, all of these things. And beyond that, to the rhythms of the soul and the spirit within the body. The musica humana is the harmony that ties together human life and really makes it possible. So the musica humana is very important for the individual and for human life. Above that, you have the musica mundana, the music of the spheres. This is the music, the harmony that governs the movements of the stars and the planets in the heavens. The heavens are seen as moving in a great cosmic dance. And this is governed by the music and the harmony there. And so this brings us, of course, to the idea of the cosmos. The cosmos as an ordered system that moves in harmony. Other aspects of the cosmos are important, which we will get to in a bit. So we'll be coming back to the cosmos in a minute. But for the moment, let's just go back to the idea of enchantment, to make magical. Now, this can be literally magic, but it can also be used metaphorically as something that is really special and magical in that sort of, metaphorical sense. So we can talk about things being enchanting, and we usually don't mean that as literally magical, or for that matter, literally musical. We can talk, for example, about an enchanting evening. An enchanting evening would be an evening where everything is really special, everything is going right. It's just the kind of an evening that is really good, that you remember really well. Alternately, we can talk about an enchanting young woman. An enchanting young woman is a woman that when you see her, it's almost like she casts a spell on you. And in fact, we describe these enchanting young women as charming, the word charm, of course, being a kind of magic spell. So our charming young woman, our enchanting young woman, could very well be wearing cosmetics. And cosmetics, interestingly enough, shares a root word with cosmos. The idea of the cosmos is it's a system of ordered beauty. And so cosmetics are a way of creating ordered beauty on one's face. So we're back to cosmos here, and we see order not just in the sense of harmony with music, but order in the sense of beauty as well. Well, in any event, our charming young woman might also be described as glamorous. Now, what's buried in the word glamorous is the root word glamour here, which in fact is also, like charming, a reference to magic. A glamour is is a kind of magic, and specifically a kind of illusion. So glamour is actually referring to illusions, magical illusions specifically. And the root word for glamour is actually an old word, gramarye, which is a word that refers to all kinds of knowledge generally, but specifically occult knowledge, hidden knowledge, which is why gramarye becomes glamour in the sense of this occult way of producing the illusion of beauty. So gramarye is this reference to occult knowledge, but not surprising if you look at the root of gramarye, it takes us to the word grammar. Now, in the Middle Ages, grammar was a word that didn't just mean what we mean by grammar. When we talk about grammar, we think of it as how to put the words in a proper order in a sentence. But in the Middle Ages, grammar included all basic language skills, including, for example, the definition of words. So words are then connected to grammar, and even today they are, I suppose, but even word definitions, and with the definition of word names, are all part of this idea of grammar. And in fact, names are very important in magical thought, because if you knew something's true name, it gave you control over the things, according to many magical systems that were believed in Europe, in traditional European cultures. So name is also then consistent with this idea of magic. It's part of this idea of the magical world. So words can take us to names. Names in Hebrew indicate nature, but they also, if you know a true name, it can give you power over things in a magical sense. But the word word also takes us to the idea of the logos. This is a Greek word that translates to the word word. It becomes well known in Christianity through John 1:1. In the beginning was the logos, in the beginning was the word. And the interesting thing about logos is it doesn't just refer to word, it refers to the idea of reason, it refers to comprehensive knowledge, it refers to rational principles, all of these things. And in fact, it is the root word of our word logic. Logic comes from the word logos, meaning word. And with the logos, of course, it also brings us back to the cosmos, because what we see in John 1 is that it is through the logos that the cosmos was created. Well, anyway, coming back here to words, one of the things that is important for us, especially in English, about words is learning to spell them. Now, the word spell comes from a Proto-High German word spellam, which means a recitation. And when you spell a word, what you're doing is reciting the letters in the word. But the recitation can also not just be a story or a listing of the letters or something like that. It can also be a recitation that is used for occult purposes. So once again, spell doesn't only apply to the letters of the word, but it is something we can do with words. We can cast a spell, bringing us once again back to magic. And the typical way we would cast a spell would be with an incantation. Incantation is a series of words that you would say or chant that would cause a magical effect. So that's what an incantation is. But interestingly enough, as I mentioned, you would chant perhaps an incantation. The root words of incantation really mean to sing into. And so this brings us right back to enchantment.
Okay, so these are all of the things that are connected with enchantment. What happens when we have disenchantment? Well, we can start with the idea of music. The musica instrumentalis turns into John Cage and Arnold Schoenberg. It turns into, well, noise, frankly. Or, in the case of John Cage, complete silence. We lose instrumental music. We lose harmony. We lose all of these kinds of things. What about the musica humana? We no longer see the body as operating as a harmonious whole. We reduce it, frankly, to a biochemical machine. The musica mundana, the music of the spheres, it's reduced to numbers and equations. There's no cosmic dance anymore. And speaking of the cosmos, it's really dead matter. It's no longer a system of ordered beauty, though we can't really deny the beauty we find there. And for that matter, beauty itself is largely dead. Modern art, whether you go back to the Cubists or Dada, architecture becomes brutalist and utilitarian, all of these kinds of things, beauty itself is dead. We talk about beauty being in the eye of the beholder because we no longer believe that there is anything that is intrinsically beautiful in and of itself. Charming young women. These days, we wouldn't really use the word glamorous to describe the female icons we have today. Instead, beauty is really transformed into something that's pornified, pierced, painted, and dyed. We've really lost that sense of charm that used to be there. And then there's language. Names and words are seen as tools of power. They're not seen as really connected in any way to external reality. They are completely arbitrary, and as a result, they can be manipulated and they can be used to promote political ideologies, to promote social movements, anything, really, because power is really the only thing that's left in the world. They're redefined, in other words, for political purposes and to control thought, which, by the way, controlling what people think has always been considered a form of black magic. Ultimately, all of these things are an attack on the logos. Logic is rejected as a tool simply to be used by those in power. It's a matter of white supremacy. The idea that reason is fundamental to the cosmos itself is rejected. The cosmos is seen as meaningless. And if there's no meaning in the universe, if there's no meaning in the cosmos, there's ultimately no meaning to our own lives. And as I said, fundamentally, all of these things are an attack on the Logos, on Christ as the Word of God. The point is that disenchantment is a very serious thing. Now, there are people out there who argue that it really isn't. They'll tell you people don't really live like the world is disenchanted. On the other hand, the evidence is there. Disenchantment effects are everywhere in the culture. Now, people have tried to escape the implications of this kind of a disenchanted world. From the 19th century through to the New Age movement and New Spirituality, we see Eastern religions, Western occultism, Spiritism, New Thought, and a whole host of other things that are attempts to escape the consequences of secularism, the consequences of materialism, the idea that matter and energy is all that exists, and the consequent meaninglessness of life and everything else that comes with that. Today we see this in the form of new paganism, whether in the eclectic form of something like Wicca or Reconstructionist versions like heathenism, or simply in the movement toward occult in various forms. Christians have largely been behind the curve on this. Theoretically, we have a supernatural worldview. Theoretically, we believe that the world is meaningful, but in point of fact, we don't really live as if much beyond what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, the physical universe is really active. We act as if everything in the physical universe has a physical cause. And that's why, for example, we don't pray a lot. And this is really effectively a secularized vision of Christianity. Now, there are exceptions. The Orthodox Church, Catholic Church, at least some of them, Pentecostal, charismatic groups, these tend to be exceptions here, but even a lot of them don't really go that far in terms of recovering a fully enchanted view of the world. Now, the good news is we don't actually have to think about re-enchanting the world, because the world has never been disenchanted. God has always imbued the universe with meaning. The only thing we really need to re-enchant is our worldview. And the series of videos that I'm putting out is intended to help us to do that. We're going to start with an enchanted worldview, looking at medieval and Renaissance magic and what we can learn from it. From there, we're going to move to breaking the enchantment, Enlightenment, scientism, and the Industrial Revolution, how these things lead to a disenchanted world, or at least a disenchanted worldview. From there, we'll look at dark re-enchantment, from its 19th century roots on to the present. And then lastly, we will move on to what Christian re-enchantment looks like. So I hope you will join us for this series.